Good evening. Welcome in to State of the Tigers, PowerMizzou.com's weekly Monday night show about Mizzou football, at least for now. Basketball soon enough, maybe as soon as next week. We are brought to you every week by James Carlton State Farm. CarltonInsurance.net is where you can find him online. And I was actually on the radio with James this morning. Look, he wants to sell you insurance. I'm not gonna downplay that part. He wants to be your insurance agent. As much as that, man, he wants to talk Missouri football. So you give James a call. You talk a little bit about 6-1, number 20 in the country, Missouri Tigers. You get an insurance quote from him. You tell him you heard about him on Power Mizzou. He is going to donate $20 to Every True Tiger Foundation, Mizzou's NIL collective of choice. And hey, you might just get an insurance agent. At the very worst, you get to talk to another Tiger fan about your favorite team. I am Gabe DeArmond, publisher of PowerMizzou.com. Now we're going to bring onto the screen Jarod Hamilton, who you last saw looking very dapper in a sport coat in the press box at Kroger, above Kroger Field. I don't know what Kentucky Stadium is called, but welcome back to Columbia, Jarod. And before we get into this, I just want to know, so Friday afternoon, you drive, I don't know, something like 7.5 hours, maybe to Lexington, Kentucky. You waste all day Saturday waiting for a 6:30 kickoff. They don't know how to get you to the media lot. You finally get to the media lot. You get into the stadium, and about 30 minutes later, it is 14-0, and Missouri looks like it has stayed in Columbia, and you are thinking what?
I remember saying to somebody in the press box, the defense, and particularly the run defense that it showed last week, seems more like the rule than the exception based off Ray Davis running through their face and giving Tyron Hopper a stiff arm that looked like Derrick Henry on Josh Norman. I remember just going like, gosh, like, y'all just gonna do this today? That's tough. So when they won and all that other stuff I went through after the game, I was just like, well, at least I know you guys will be happy. Like that's cool. Because, man, trying to ask questions or find out work or whatever after they lose and would have lost by a beatdown, it looks like that wouldn't have been any fun for me. So that was cool.
Yeah, that's always like – again, this is another thing where, look, we root for the same things you guys want to. Like, we do not want to spend an entire weekend and go on the road to watch what it looked like that game was going to be in the first quarter. We're going to get into a question I have about that a little bit later on, about who should go on the road and which trips we should make here. We'll talk about that momentarily. I have to address the most pressing question we have gotten in the comments so far. I want you guys, questions, comments, throw them up there. We'll get to that. Emu Nuke wants to know, is that a Cardinals hat? My friend, you just know me better than that. This is a 2023 Ryder Cup hat. It just happens to be red. So we got to address the apparel questions first. Also, wouldn't work to wear a Cardinals hat with my 2014 Major League Baseball postseason hoodie, which is what I'm wearing right now. But anyway, so I tweeted with 2 minutes left in the first quarter that it is literally impossible to be dominated for 13 minutes of football more than Missouri was dominated for the first 13 minutes of that game. I mean, Jarod, you correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember a single play that I thought, well, that went well for Missouri. Like, not one play in the first 13 minutes.
Quick 3-and-out, followed by terrible interception, followed by another pretty quick 3-and-out. So nothing
and
that
defensively, it was just watching Ray Davis run down the field and then suddenly turning Devin Leary into Jaden Daniels for a couple plays.
They've got to fix the contain. I will say that's something. But yeah, that was first 13, 14 minutes, or I guess the first quarter. It was just like, oof. Well, we know what team is going to bounce back from their loss looking much better.
And then, like, what happened, man? I mean, I know Luke Bauer happened. Is it that simple? Luke Bauer just fixed everything?
Well, You guys are gonna get a lot of Uno references in my column tomorrow. But Missouri pulled out their reverse card. They said, "All right, I got something for you." They pulled out the
I like
the
it.
Luke Power touchdown pass to Marquise Johnson. You started to see the defense kind of settle in, and I think honestly, from my point, you could tell Kentucky was. You can kind of tell a team is shook, even if a team has a double-digit lead. We've seen this with Kansas City when teams pull out fake punts and how that can turn, change the tide of a game because you think you got everything in hand. They stopped Luther not just in the first quarter but the whole game. They shut down so many things. They had this lead. They got off to a good start, and when you see a team pull something out that out their hat and they get kind of boosted up, you're like, well, what else do we got to kind of prepare for? I mean, what other things? So you kind of start. It seems like they lost a little bit of focus. Kentucky did, and Missouri took full advantage of that and just kept beating them down.
Well, and I think sometimes we forget that these games we're watching are being played by 18 to 22-year-old kids.
Correct.
And it's easy to come out, especially when you're at home, because we saw Missouri do this a week ago. It's easy to come out sky high and
Yep.
everything's going well, and you just think it's going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing happens. For Missouri against LSU, it was a Brady Cook interception. For Kentucky against Missouri, it was that fake punt. And one thing, I mean, there are a lot of blown 14-point leads in college football. It's not that big a lead. We think it's that big a lead, but the truth is you are one play away from making it a one-play game. And if you make that one play, not only does it get your team going, it will have the other team going, oh, hang on, man. I thought they were just going to quit, and now they didn't quit. What do we do?
Absolutely. Something about plays like fake punt, onside kick, just in a way, I know they were technically they still their possession, but it feels like they're stealing a possession away from you when they do that, especially on the fourth down, let alone the points that come with it. I mean, because they didn't have to have a touchdown, obviously, to convert the fourth down. So the fact that they were able to get points out of it, again, to your point, is just kind of feel like, thought they were going to lay down after we came out with our draw 4 cards.
So let me ask you this, and we'll move forward a little bit. I don't remember what the distance was on fourth down. They were at the 39-yard line, though. It was fourth and something from the Kentucky 39. When Luke Bauer trotted out on the field, when the punt team came out, my first thought was, Eli, are you really out here punting from the 39-yard line down 14-0? I'm curious what your thought was when the punt team took the field.
I can't remember. I can't remember. I'm trying to look up the down and distance as well. My first thought was just like, man, if they don't get going soon, they think it's going to be a big problem, especially when a running team has the lead like how they have it. I was thinking, well, play action is really going to start kicking up real soon. They can do pretty much anything they want it to do. And I was thinking, I mean, somebody has to wake up. I don't know. I feel like we've seen a lot of games over the last, year and a half since I've been here where one side of the ball wakes up, the other side of the ball doesn't wake up. We've seen that, but having both sides of the ball not wake up, I was just like, you guys are playing with fire. But they obviously they kind of knew.
And they had it turned around. I mean, they led at halftime in that game. Real quick break from the game. The important question: Mitchell wants to know if you drove straight home or if you actually used the hotel room.
Absolutely not. I did not drive straight home. The reason I was saying that is because I figured by the time I'd finish all my work and all the press conferences driving back, I'd be in bed by 5 o'clock, that's exactly when I was able to go to sleep at 5 o'clock. So I was saying I might as well drive. Of course, I was not going to do that. I was just saying that Realist George had me absolutely weak with calling
Power Kansas.
calling it Power Kansas and stay down. What is it? What is it?
What do you say? Get down or lay down or something like that. I can't remember.
Get down. Oh my goodness. I've heard that before, but just in that context, I'm going to start saying it randomly. And my girlfriend's going to be very upset. She don't know what I'm talking about.
I didn't know what he was talking about, honestly, but we're good.
I don't know. It's real aggressive, but
I did have to defend myself. I was accused on the live show of not paying for a hotel room and making Jarod drive straight back from Lexington, Kentucky at 4 a.m. and that did not
No,
happen, folks.
Gabe is
I,
Gabe is real cool with all the travel. I just have to show up, so don't worry
I
about
gotta
it.
I gotta build up those Hilton points, man. That's how that works. Um, so here's I saw a comment and I'll find it here. Jason was saying before the second quarter, I started wondering how much money Tyron Hopper lost by going pro. So here's my question, or by not going pro. Here's my question. What did you think the major issue was defensively in the first quarter? And like, is it fixed? Did they fix the defense? Did we see the 2022 defense in the last three quarters of that game?
In the last three quarters, yes, but the first quarter,
But is
the
it here to
problem
stay?
that's to be determined.
Right.
So their biggest problem to me, it feels like every time there's a problem with the defense, we kind of shift around to maybe it's poor run defense, maybe the safeties and but something that's always been the same since I got this job is their tackling. Tackling is always poor. Coaches are always talking about how they've got to be textbook. I don't know. I don't remember. There were so many pressers last year as far as Baker and Drink just saying, we've got to get the thigh boards. We've got to wrap up. We've got to do all this when we're tackling. They had a tackling grade according to PFF of like under 37.
Yeah.
Tyron Hopper led the way with 3 missed tackles. He's at least led the team in missed tackles 3 or 4 games easily. And I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. He looked brutal in the first quarter. And that, who was that? Jason who put that question up or that comment up. I thought about that. I thought about that when I was making the PFF article. Like, how much is he kind of messing up, some of the funds for next year by staying back another year because some of his weaknesses sometimes are showing. And he just, on any given day, him and K&D, one of them could be the best player, but it seems like with him, it's like he's either the best or he's just like non-existent.
You don't notice him, yeah.
Or you notice him for the wrong reason.
Right. Well, and I think the reason I'm hesitant to say the defense is fixed is because I don't think Kentucky's a good test for that. Because Kentucky only has one way to win a football game. Like, I thought Kentucky's problem on Saturday was very simple. Devin Leary was not very accurate and did not play quarterback very well. When he was accurate, his receivers helped him out by largely dropping the ball and not making a single play for him. Like, they had no pass. They were no threat in half the game. So once you figured out how to tackle Ray Davis, they were done. They don't have another way to win.
Right. I think they came in with the 70th ranked rushing attack. So even though as much as we talk about how great Ray Davis is, I mean, eventually they'll stop him, and they're not going to go for almost 300 rushing yards like an LSU or any team with a kind of a mobile quarterback with an efficient running back. You're not going to see that. So you got that. Or wide receivers aren't that great.
Bad. They were just bad.
Yeah, no one had more than 3 receptions or more than 32 receiving yards. So to kind of be shut out like that is kind of crazy. But yeah, once they figured out the Ray Davis part, it was all about fixing themselves, really. And it took care of itself the rest of the way.
And look, defensively, I think we do need to give credit where it's due. I thought the second biggest play of that game was defensive. I thought, because fake punt is number one. It turned the thing around. But I thought the second biggest play of that game was Kentucky's first snap of the third quarter where Joseph Charleston punches the ball out. I think it was Drayden Norwood recovered it. I mean, a fumble on the first play out of half is it's just devastating, man.
I remember I was writing my quick thoughts, and I just couldn't understand why they received first. Couldn't really grasp my head around it because obviously we talk about the swing gate. Yeah, we talk about the swing gate so much. Drink is talking about the swing gate so much. So that was mind-boggling. But if you can kind of get something like that, not saying he predicted that, but if you can get turnover on the first play of still another possession, I mean that's big time.
Yeah, because I mean, basically, Missouri got the ball to start both halves in that game. I mean, more or less, and that's a huge advantage. I want to hit this one because we can probably talk for a little bit about this. Skylar's asking how much fun it is to cover a good football team for a change, and I just want you to take that first because, like, last year you did not cover a good football team. They weren't awful, but they weren't good. Like this year's better, man. It's just better.
It's well, this is only year two covering college football for me, so I'm really just happy to be here. So I don't really rain too much on it, whether it's good or bad. I don't got that cachet you got yet, Gabe, but it's definitely different. It's kind of I was talking to my dad earlier, trying to work out plans to go visit him. And I've been telling him all year, though, it depends on if they get to a bowl game or not. I told him today, well, they're definitely going to go to a bowl game. At this point,
You
if
might
they
have to
keep up,
push that off till the first week in January.
yeah, that's exactly what I told him. I said, at this point, um, they continue how they're playing, I may see you a little bit earlier in December because they may be New Year's Six territory. So, I mean, that's definitely a cool aspect. And obviously, more people are reading stuff. We're getting to talk to more people, do more appearances. And it's cool because I do all this work all week. So it's good for more people to want to know about the team and what we're, kind of what we're doing here covering the team.
Right, like, you know what I noticed during good seasons? People tend to think that our writing is a lot better during good seasons.
Mhm.
It's probably not. It's probably pretty similar. It's just that they like what it says and they're reading it more. I mean, I was joking earlier today, like, I've had seasons where people are like, "Yo, what? Why are you still writing about them, man? Like, we haven't read about that in 4 weeks. What are you doing over there?" I had people tell me during the Kim Anderson years, like, "Don't go to the games. We're not gonna read it. It's fine. You don't have to
Oh
write
my
about it
goodness.
anymore."
Yeah, the rose-colored glasses come in when things are going
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, but so let's hit on that for a minute. Let's hit on the future because I'm going to say this 100 times this week, guys. We can talk about whatever the hell we want. It does not impact the game against South Carolina. Like we can talk about the 2029 football season. We can look ahead as far as we want. We don't play. We don't call a play. We don't coach. What we talk about doesn't matter. So I wrote a little bit on Saturday night about how I think what that game did is change the ceiling for this season. I mean, so we've said all season long, like I think after LSU, we both kind of came off 7-5 and said we expect 8-4. That change after Saturday?
Yes. And here's the thing about the games, because we obviously give our predictions on the season, and then we'll say even before that game, if they win this game, such and such, this may change that. But after you see the context, was actually watching the game and stuff, it's different because they were down 14 and won by 17 in a game, which basically they was only playing 45 minutes while Kentucky was playing 60. Or I guess Kentucky only
Well,
showed up for
Kentucky
the
was
first
actually playing
15.
about 15.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They quit after a minute. But when you see the context surrounding it, instead of them just winning the way they won without Luther Burden, I think is one of the things that impresses me the most. I'm kind of at 9-3. I read your column, obviously, and you talked about if they win 8 games, that's still an improvement from what the
Yeah,
baseline was when we
like you
started.
can't be unhappy about that big picture.
Yeah, but you made a good point though. You can adjust your expectations as things go along, depending on what you see. And we're seeing a team that 8-4 would be disappointing. They've got to me at least 3 more wins on the schedule that I feel like are certain. And Tennessee is looking like it's a toss up. I haven't done enough research on Tennessee to know, so I'm not going to speak too much on it. But that doesn't look like a sure. Oh, yeah, Tennessee is going to light them up because what they've done in the past anymore. It's looking like, well, we're going to wait and see how these teams do over the next few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think the expectation now is to win 9. And I don't think 10's off the table. I don't think 11's off the table, if you want to be
Yeah.
honest. I mean, I'm not picking them to beat Georgia, but I think they've got as good a chance as anybody in the East to beat Georgia.
Yeah.
But bottom line, 9-3, and you're talking about Gator Bowl, maybe Outback Bowl, something on that level. If you get to 10-2, though, you're talking about being in that New Year's Six. You're talking about Peach Bowl, that kind of Cotton Bowl. that kind of thing. I think what hurts Missouri a little bit this year, and we will talk about this plenty as we get more toward bowl selection and all that. I think what hurts Missouri is there is no way that two SEC teams are making the playoff this year, right? So, like in the past, that New Year's Six, like if you finished fourth or even fifth in the SEC, you had a shot at those New Year's Six bowls. You're not going to get that this year. There's only going to be one SEC team in the playoff. So, if it's not you, you got to probably finish. You know, Missouri's already lost a tiebreaker to LSU. Like they need some help with Bama losing or something to get into that New Year's Six conversation if they don't win the division.
Yeah, it's kind of. No, I get. Actually, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it'd probably be hard for two SEC teams.
I don't see any way two SEC teams can get in the playoff.
Yeah, especially when you got teams like Washington, Oregon.
That's the problem. There's a lot of good teams in other leagues this year.
And then Ohio State or Michigan.
You got 3 in the Big Ten. You're going to have an ACC champ. You're going to have a Big 12 champ and maybe a runner-up that's, 12-1, 11-2.
Right.
So
yeah, that'd be pretty hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets tough. But yeah, I think 9 wins now is where you set your sights and hope for more. And Nathan's asking me, out of the teams I've covered, how does this season compare in terms of excitement and ceiling? So you're really talking about, I mean, the 2 teams I've covered that obviously kind of stand out above the rest are 07 and 13. 2007, like they knew they were going to be good. Everybody kind of thought they were going to be good. I've looked back at this before. I picked them 9-3 and picked them, I think, to win the Big 12 North at 9-3. They obviously ended up 11-1, so they were better than I thought, but they knew they were going to be good. 2013, there's a lot more questions. Year 1 in the SEC had been really bad. But as that season started to build, that was like, oh, hang on, they got something going here. And then they started chasing, potential national championship appearance and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. This is probably a little closer to 2014 or 2010, which were good teams. But in 2010, they beat Oklahoma to go, I think, 7-0 or 6-0. Then they lost 2 in a row. So they finished 10-2. It was a good team, but not a great team. And then 2014, they lost to Indiana early in the year, and everybody kind of wrote them off. They ended up winning the SEC East. But that Indiana loss had hurt them so bad that, like, it was still unlikely. It was possible, but pretty unlikely if they had upset Alabama in the SEC title game that they were making, the BCS or the playoff, whatever it was at that point. But you also kind of knew going into that game against Alabama, there wasn't much of a chance. Missouri was probably upsetting them. So, like, that was a good season and they won the division, but it wasn't on the level of the other 2. Right now, I'd put this right about there, but I'd say excitement level, it's closer to like 13 or 07 just because it's been so damn long. I mean, it's been 9 years since Missouri fans have had something like this to get excited about. And the truth of the matter is that in most years, they've killed that by the end of September. I mean, this was the first year. I think this was the first year since 2014 they had started 4-0. So you're talking about before the conference season has even really started most years. Most people knew a lot of things were off the table. And so that's the fun part about this year is that everybody's excited. Recruiting's going well. It's just everything's kind of come together. Basketball season's starting and people are excited about that. So, the fan base is more excited probably about Mizzou athletics than it has been since it's been a long time, guys, probably 2013, honestly, since then. And I always appreciate guys like Jeff reminding you to like the show and subscribe and do those things because I'm real bad at reminding you guys about those things. So there was a question, Jarod, somewhere, and you mentioned it a little bit, Missouri winning without Luther Burden. Somebody had asked what Kentucky did to take him away. I mean, Jeff was asking, I think they pretty clearly went into that game saying 2 things. Number 1, Luther Burden's not going to beat us. And number 2, big plays are not going to beat us.
Yeah. On that interception that Brady threw, They just had somebody kind of slide over. First one, I can't really comprehend why Brady threw it because he was in
He was
tight
just
coverage.
Yeah, he's
Even
thrown
then,
3 interceptions, and everyone has been trying to force the ball to Luther Bird.
I get it, but no, throw it away. That one, throw it away. He was in pretty tight one-on-one coverage, so I was thinking throw it away before the guy even kind of swooped in and got the interception. Throw it away. Yeah, they just what you said. They were saying, he's not going to beat us. We're going to force you to do other things. It was really kind of testing Brady's thinking because he's been doing so well with the deep ball. They obviously know about Marquise Johnson, and they found out on the punt. So actually a clever thing by Eric Lincoln and Drink to know maybe that's something Kentucky will do, try to limit the big plays. You find a way to get a big play somewhere else they're not expecting. But yeah, no big plays. And Brady, are you going to be okay? With swing passes to Cody Schrader and throwing it underneath and having Theo be your main guy. And he was pretty much after the first quarter, he kind of got another pass out of his system that looked like it should have been an interception. But from then on, I think he completed 18 of his last 23 and kind of settled in to just taking what they gave. And he was able to use his legs a little bit more as well.
Yeah, and I want to be clear before I say this, that in no way am I comparing these two quarterbacks as players. But Jarod and I are both Chiefs fans, and we remember, what was it, Jarod, 2021, when the NFL acted like they had just discovered two deep safety shell defense was this thing, right? Like nobody had ever played it before. And it's what everybody did against the Chiefs because it's what Tampa did in the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And basically the bet was, we think you'll either get impatient and try to throw a pass you can't throw against this defense, or we just don't think you're going to be good enough to execute 5 yards at a time and go down the field. Well, that's what Missouri did on Saturday. They said, fine, you want us to just throw swing passes and throw to the flats and hit Theo Weiss on a turnaround 6 yards at a time? That's what they'll do. And they did it to the tune of 38 points. And I think showing that you're able to do that is a huge thing for this team, right? Like, yes, you want to be able to hit a 60-yard play sometimes, but sometimes you're not going to do it. And so to be able to show that you can go 60 yards, even if it takes 8 or 9 plays, is a big deal.
Yeah, that's big. And it's Drink said they didn't play well offensively, and they didn't. The run game struggled for most of the game. Obviously, the passing game couldn't get too much going deep. But again, being able to beat a team, by 1,000 paper cuts or whatever it is, that's something you actually need to be able to do if you're a quality, bowl, one of those upper echelon teams. You got to be able to win in multiple ways. You got to be able to win when things aren't going as planned, because if they thought they were going to be able to gash teams over the top all year, like they did the first 5 they did it to LSU too. So how they did the first 6 games, someone eventually is going to be like, all right, well, let's see what you do now. Because like Drink said a couple weeks ago, it's chess, not checkers. So he's not the only one playing chess, though. There's other, great, defensive teams in this league. So that was important for them to kind of figure out what can they do, basically without their queen on the board, which is Luther Burden, and kind of use the other pieces to make something shake and win.
Well, I mean, Kentucky tried to turn Luther Burden into the queen when, in the words of Tom Hart, it hit him in the bag of chips, So, but no, look, like Luther will come back. He'll be fine. He'll have big days. I thought it was a huge day for Theo Weiss. I thought that was the day. I mean, I was shocked at the end of that game that Theo only had 6 catches for 58 yards because it
felt more. It felt like more. He had 19 for 378 and 4 touchdowns last year in his final year at Oklahoma. I think it was like 113, 123 of those came in the final game of the year. So, I mean, he's already kind of doubled that. I think he's at 34 for 392 and 5. I mean, we're only 7 games in. So to have a number 2 like that, he's doing exactly what they were hoping he'd do when they got him in. So big props to Theo.
Mookie Cooper he only had 2 catches, but they were big catches, and he did something with the ball on both of them after he caught it. I thought his contribution was big.
Mhm.
Brett Norfleet, all 4 of his targets for 40 yards.
Huge.
It just adds a different dimension.
I mean, 4 drops last week. That's crazy. You can't have 4 drops from anybody, let alone one player. We talked about it for a year and a half about not having a tight end, and kind of just at times it feels like they're playing 10 on 11. If what you got to trade is, maybe some run blocking, and it's not, no disrespect to Tyler Sears, but it's not like he's great run blocker. If you've got to trade a little bit of run blocking because, Brett is a little, he's smaller still and he's new to the game. If you got to trade that in for some receiving and for someone to be out there to be some type of capable threat, you do it because first off, I still don't think teams are believing that tight end is a threat yet. It's kind of like, it reminds me, I forgot what game it was, but it was kind of late in the season. I got on an SEC teleconference call and one of the coaches brought up Luther Burden. I was thinking he's not the problem. It's Dominic Lovett. I mean, Burden is a problem, but you guys know what I'm saying. Dominic Lovett is the problem, that you should be worried about. So I feel like it's the same thing with Brett Norfleet. Obviously, he's getting a late start with it being his first one in week 7. But if you can have that type of guy be able to help spread the field, it's big time.
Absolutely. And again, all they need out of the tight end is go 6 yards and catch the ball. That's all you got to do.
They're not asking for the Brock Bowers type thing. They're just asking to be something, be useful in some capacity, whatever we call on you, and that's what they got.
Make someone cover you, basically. is
Yeah,
bonus.
yeah.
Along those lines, Cam's asking, this is the best wide receiver core Missouri has had since when? I actually was asked this question on the radio this morning. I think it's probably since 2007, 2008, in that range. I think this is better than the 2013 group that had Dorial Green Beckham, LaDamian Washington, Bud Sasser, Marcus Lucas, Jimmy Hunt. I think this group is better than that, although they probably still have a little to prove. But you won't convince me that Missouri's ever going to quite have a receiving core like Jeremy Maclin, Denario Alexander, Jared Perry, William Franklin, and Tommy Saunders, and then throw 2 All-American tight ends into the mix too. I mean, that was like, no disrespect to Chase Daniel because he was a great quarterback, but he had a lot of dudes around him that helped make him a great quarterback too. So that's the gold standard, and I don't think Missouri's there yet. I understand their recruiting developments that you guys want to hope that next year they're there. We'll see. I'm going to have to see it on the field before it happens. So just kind of we'll preview the South Carolina game this weekend, but just kind of quick thoughts. I'm sure you didn't really get a chance to see much of Florida, South Carolina, if any, this weekend, did you?
No, I know they lost by I think 2 points, and it was kind of
they
a
had a
high
39-27 lead with about 9 minutes to go, and let Graham Mertz throw for 423 and 4 touchdowns.
Oh, brother.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a South Carolina game since their week 1. I think it was when they faced UNC.
North Carolina.
I don't know, but I know that record doesn't look great. And if you're doing stuff like that,
I mean, their team at this point is basically Spencer Rattler. But here's the thing about this game. So last year, South Carolina had just had a nice win. They entered the top 25.
Right.
They're feeling real good about themselves. Missouri was just kind of there. And Missouri went into their house and dominated that game. So, like, Eli Drinkwitz has a visual aid he can show his team that, hey, you probably still need to show up.
Yeah, I think we talked about this maybe a week or 2 ago. Spencer Rattler doesn't really impress me, but I will say this: the best Spencer Rattler can make some plays when he's playing at his best, and maybe he's get a little bit of help. It's certainly a game they can lose. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing that the way they felt about Vandy and how they kind of took care of business versus Vandy, considering that elite wide receiver group they have there. Same way they need to feel about all games, but especially the ones where we're kind of already saying, that's going to be a win. That's going to be a win, because every team, even the ones that look like they're going to be at the bottom of the division or the bottom of the conference, they still got some guys in there that you say, well, if you let this person, have their day, you could lose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trevor wants to know, do you have an argument for the people that say Mizzou hasn't played anybody? I haven't seen a lot of that argument, but like K-State was ranked 16th in the country, and Kentucky was 23rd. I mean, hey, part of the reason those teams aren't ranked anymore is because Missouri beat them.
Unranked Missouri teams at that.
Right. And yeah, they were technically ranked in one poll when they beat Kentucky. But yeah, I mean, so point being, like, it's real easy after you beat a team to go, well, that team's not any good. Well, part of the reason they're not any good is because you beat them. Like you deserve credit for that. So has Missouri played a murderer's row? No, but
who has
their schedule's better than Michigan's. It's better than Oklahoma's.
Yeah, I don't, and obviously I'm not looking at the whole FBS, but I don't know who's really played the group off the top of my head, and I'm just thinking like, dang, gauntlet after gauntlet after gauntlet, really. So, I mean, you play who's on the schedule though, because I find this interesting every year. People discount games and say, well, you didn't play no one, blah blah blah. But it counts all of a sudden when you lose those games, or when those games are closer than it needs to be. Then all of a sudden, how could you be this close to MTSU and all that stuff? So the games do count. You do gotta win the game.
Yeah. Cam's asking, what bowl do we need to make to avoid massive opt-outs? Like, I think that's an interesting question for this reason, because like Eli talked last year a lot about wanting a game that got the kids home for Christmas and all that. And that's their prerogative. That's fine. A lot of guys still didn't play. I think when you start to get into the territory Missouri might get into with, Gator Bowl, Outback Bowl, things like that, like I'll be interested to see if a lot more guys play in that game than played in the Gasparilla Bowl or the Armed Forces Bowl.
Right, especially when you're trending towards 9-3, 10-2, and you got to keep in mind, like obviously Missouri being 9-3 and 10-2 versus Alabama or one of those schools being 9-3 or 10-2. It's a much bigger deal, even if they're not in the New Year's Six Bowl or whatever. I actually have the bowl games pulled up for the SEC and all of what they can do. Got the Liberty Bowl, ReliaQuest Bowl, Vegas Bowl, Texas Bowl, Gator Bowl, and Music City Bowl. And then obviously if they make playoff, there's Orange Bowl and Citrus Bowl as options.
Yeah, it's Citrus Bowl, not Outback Bowl that I keep thinking of. Yeah.
Which of those bowls, and I feel like we've got a thought, but which of those bowls are you saying, all right, I think I'll hop on the plane for it?
I mean, look, I'll cover the Vegas Bowl. I'm
of course. Of course. Is there any other of those bowls that's not a playoff bowl that maybe you're thinking? If they're facing the right opponent, I get also keep that in mind. Like if they're facing another good quality team, is there one that you may go?
Yeah, it depends on the matchup, I think, and where Missouri's at when the game's played, all that. I'll consider. So I was saying we were going to touch on travel earlier. So here's my dilemma. I want the subscribers or the viewers' feedback on this too. So before the season, I request all the credentials for the games and road games. I get a credential for Jarod. He's covered. He get into the game. I haven't covered road games for a few years now, mostly, so I don't request one for myself. Well, I woke up Sunday morning and said, I don't know, that Georgia game's looking pretty big. I better put in a request in case I end up needing to go to that game, right? So if Missouri beats South Carolina, they're going to be 7-1. They're going to have a week off. That game is going to be for the inside track to the division. So part of me goes, I've got to be there in case they win that game, right? And part of me also knows if I buy another plane ticket and we staff that game with 2 people, I'm going to go down there, and because we have done that, Missouri is going to get blown out by Georgia.
Wait a minute.
I'm not saying that me going changes the results of the game. I'm saying if I stay home, they will win, and I know I'll go, how could you not be at that game? So we have even more coverage. But if I go, then they get blown out. It's going to be like, well, why did we do this, man? Ain't nobody reading anyway.
Nah, I think, well, here's the thing. People don't, it's similar to the LSU game. They don't get blown out. People are going to read regardless. I mean, y'all should be reading tapped in anyway if y'all do or die like y'all say. But I feel like people are going to be tapped in if the game's competitive and stuff. And I just think it's going to be that much bigger because they have a bye week the week before. They can kind of rest up. Maybe the game plans, they start adding in some trickery or whatever, like we seen this week. I don't know, Gabe. I think Gabe should.
So you're
come
saying at
along.
7-1, I got to go.
7-1. I think so.
I mean, I'll tell you right now, they lose to South Carolina, I'm staying home. That's out of it. That's not even a conversation. But if they beat South Carolina, that's where it gets gray area.
I think they're going to beat South Carolina. I think you should go ahead and get in your mind that you will be stuck with me in the Atlanta airport looking for rental cars for hours. Go ahead and think about that one.
You know what? I forgot that Hartsfield Jackson is involved in this trip. That might just change everything right there. That place is the 10th circle of hell. We'll deal with that later.
It's bad, but when I think about this team, obviously I did the 2013 story earlier in the summer. Just some of the parallels. It'd be crazy if they go to Athens and they can make a game of it. Maybe they steal that one, because then, we're talking about New Year's 6 stuff where you're probably going to go to whatever that is. So you might as well prep yourself up to say, I've been on the road once. Let me get ready to do it again.
I tell you what, man, when Missouri sucked at everything, the travel budget was a lot lighter. I'll tell you that. Apparently it was Paul Feinbaum that said Missouri hasn't played anybody good. I hold Jarod responsible for all Feinbaum comments. I don't watch that show, never have, but he's Jarod's guy. So that's
man, I don't know. Paul is cool. I do think he likes Bama a lot. I'll say that. Paul is cool.
He likes the blue bloods. No question. All right. Okay. So Cam Klauser informed me that the Outback Bowl was renamed the Relia Quest Bowl.
That is true.
That's disappointing because that takes any chance that I would get a bloomin' onion at that game off the table. So that's unfortunate.
Some of these bowl game names are just so boring. They're just no fun.
Yeah.
No fun.
I mean, when I covered the Armed Forces Bowl, I'm like, how's Missouri supposed to beat Army in the Armed Forces Bowl? Like that's not
home field, home bowl advantage.
Exactly, man. Like Army's not allowed to lose the Armed Forces Bowl. That'd be like sending Missouri to play Alabama in the Tuscaloosa Bowl, man. You can't do that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty tough.
All right, so you want to get to this? I can't read this username. I don't know what it is, but with success this year, is there any word on kids from Missouri that previously committed to another program wanting to transfer to Missouri? So I'm not sure about transfer because nobody's going to be in the portal for a while, but everybody knows Jeremiah McClellan, 4-star receiver from CBC, is committed to Ohio State. He was at the LSU game. He is visiting Ohio State this weekend for their game against Penn State. I have a feeling that will be an impressive atmosphere. So it's possible he comes out there and goes, no, I'm sold, man. I'm going to Ohio State. But the winds have shifted toward Missouri on SLU 5-star Ryan Wingo. The expectation is now that probably happens sometime in the next month. And if that happens, I've had people tell me that helps Missouri's case a lot with Jeremiah McClellan. So he's the one to watch. I mean, there are some other guys. There's a running back, Aeneas Williams, committed, I believe, to Notre Dame. There is offensive lineman Sprague. I can't remember his first name right now for some reason, but Andrew Sprague, yes, committed to Michigan. So there are other guys that Missouri could take a shot at. Now it's, Michigan, Notre Dame, Ohio State. You're not exactly picking kids off from, South Dakota Technical School, but Missouri can take their shot with NIL laws and things like that. So I'm interested. We get media day tomorrow. We've kind of figured out a pattern with Eli Drinkwitz. When you think he's going to be pretty happy and upbeat, he tends not to be. And when you think he might be down a little bit, he tends to be the best. I am expecting super boring Eli Drinkwitz tomorrow that says absolutely nothing and kind of points out all his team's flaws.
Yeah, be serious and say how they got to take South Carolina seriously. He'll tell us they're a good
He's,
team. He's like you said, South Dakota. What do you
he's
say?
got to
South
get
Dakota
his
Tech.
yeah.
That's what you said. He'd call them He'd call them like they're in the community college. They're one of the best teams in the nation. He'll find a way to to plug the other team up. I feel like he'll do the same tomorrow.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think any coach will tell you the toughest job in coaching is the week after a big win because you got to drag your team back down to earth and remind them they're not as good as they probably think they are and as everybody is saying they are. So this is a challenging week for Eli Drinkwitz because he's got to convince his guys, hey man, you go out and play that same first quarter, you might get your ass beat.
Yeah, well, I will say this, and I think they've been doing pretty good at just keeping this poker face, win or loss, no matter what game it is. They really do. By the time we get to media days on Tuesday, they seem to have actually moved on. D-Rob started in the presser, like he was telling the strength and conditioning coaches and stuff like, I'm ready to work out right now. I'm ready, like, because he's excited to finally be on the team where they're not scratching and clawing. So it may
Playing
provide
football.
more motivation for these guys to want to get back in the lab and get to work because now they're kind of in new territory that even the upperclassmen haven't really seen. So yeah, Drink will say all the stuff about what they need to fix, and there is some stuff to fix, but I don't know. They've been pretty good at saying we got a W or we got a L, and they kind of moved on to the next team.
Yeah. And the thing about being on a good team, the thing about being in this position is every game is the biggest game. And as soon as you win, the next game is the biggest game. Like, South Carolina doesn't have the hype going into this game that the Kentucky game did. But this is Missouri's biggest game of the season because if they want Georgia to mean something, they have to win this game. So it's the biggest game they played all year, and every subsequent game will be as long as they keep winning.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll see, but hopefully he's in an upbeat mood. I was surprised he was in a good enough mood to do a quick one-on-one after the presser. So I didn't expect the happiness to last that long. I do have a theory that I put in my column, which you guys can see tomorrow morning, as to why he's been so happy despite the loss. Connect some dots. I think it's pretty easy, but there's theory.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think it might be because he's already matched his highest win total at Missouri. Partly,
Well, he was happy
but you're talking about the week
technically.
before.
Yeah, and so maybe if he's happy, I definitely know why. I'm pretty sure I know why last week he was so happy.
Yeah.
We'll see if it carries over.
We're getting a couple injury questions. Somebody had asked about Luther Burden. I assume he's fine. He came back in and played on Saturday.
I don't.
He just
Yeah,
wasn't effective.
he took the shot,
But
but he's
but
good.
you remember at the beginning of the year, Jarod, when we were talking about Luther can be good for this team without putting up eye-popping numbers just because he draws so much attention. Like that little 2 or 3 yard run that Brady Cook had, it all happened because they faked a pitch to Luther Burden, and the entire defense went with Luther, and Brady had one guy to beat to the corner.
Yeah, he's going to be a phenomenal decoy. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's obviously at his worst. If he's a decoy, you can kind of see the other guy stepping up, then that's going to be fine. The shot he took to the midsection, it's just one of those things of being a guy. You just got to take a second to bounce back. But I didn't see he walked right past me as I was waiting for Drink to finish up after the game. He was in a good mood. He didn't seem like there was any problems. Rakestraw. What's he got? He's got a growing. That one probably, if I'm guessing, would be like a week-to-week thing.
I bet they give him one more week off because
they can afford to.
You've got the bye week coming. Drayden Norwood's playing pretty well. I bet he suits up because it's a home game. I bet he's on the sideline, but I bet they don't play him unless they need to.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say the South Carolina. I think I've seen something that they're 22nd best pass offense. So they're willing to throw the ball, but they do like Drayden Norwood enough. And if they can get enough pressure, they got 18 pressures versus Kentucky. then it's not going to matter because Spencer Rattler's probably not getting too far without getting beat up, especially with the struggles of his offensive line.
Because Drink said last week they just needed to sit Ennis because it was one of those injuries where every time you play him and he's not 100%, it sets it back a little bit. So he was off last week. You won. I think you see if you can get through this week without him, give him 3 full weeks off, and then he's back, no question, ready to go for the last 4 games of the year.
Yeah, because last week, what did he say? It was basically he had one side his groin was messed up, and then basically it was okay, and then he messed up the other side. So that's something where you don't want to be going back and forth with these types of things. So yeah, I can see them kind of doing what they did versus Memphis as far as like him being active and not playing. But I also think if he's active, they're just playing him. If he's active, just playing, we're going.
I wouldn't play him unless he's 100%. That's where I'd go this week. So I don't know. I feel like we hit everything. Is there anything we didn't hit?
I'll have it also in the column. I have exactly details of what happened and why I couldn't get to the presser and this silly security guard who was in my way. I'll have that all the way down, and then you guys can read about my parlays and how the so-called best teams in the league are the ones who failed me yesterday.
All right. I like travel blogs and gambling advice. So we'll check that out tomorrow. So, all right, guys, appreciate everybody hanging out. We got close to 150 before you guys start logging off. I do want to remind you one more time about our friend, James Carlton, carltoninsurance.net. You can call him at 314-961-4800. That is 314-961-4800. If you tell James you heard about him on Power Mizzou, he's going to light up. He's going to say, "Oh, Gabe and Jarod, I love those guys. Those are they're great gentlemen and amazing human beings and wonderful spokesmen for what we do here at James Carlton State Farm." And then he's going to talk a little Missouri football with you. He's going to tell you he can get you a good deal on your insurance. He's going to save you money, all good things. So get in touch with James. And then when you're done talking, he's going to donate $20 to Every True Tiger Foundation for you giving him a call and get a quote. So do all those things. Get in touch with James Carlton for your insurance. We will be back on Thursday afternoon. We're going to do a little South Carolina preview. We may check in with Drew King, who's going to be in Birmingham for SEC men's and women's basketball media days. And I don't know. That's all I got. Talk to you guys next time.